The Latin American debt crisis of 1982 had lasting consequences for the region. This article explores the crisis's causes, events during the crisis period, and the resulting aftermath. The crisis originated in the early 1970s, influenced by several factors. The rise in international interest rates and the global economic slowdown triggered the crisis. The U.S. Federal Reserve's tight monetary policies in the early 1970s led to increased international interest rates. Simultaneously, the world economy began to slow down, leading investors to lend funds to Latin American countries with high interest rates. Latin American countries heavily relied on exporting raw materials like oil, minerals, and agricultural products. However, global commodity prices started to decline in the mid-1970s due to economic downturns, energy crises, and technological advancements. This decline reduced foreign exchange earnings, weakening the economic conditions of Latin American countries. Accumulated debt and excessive borrowing also contributed significantly to the crisis. Faced with economic challenges and falling commodity prices, Latin American countries borrowed extensively to bridge fiscal deficits and stimulate economic development. However, this led to a dangerous accumulation of debt, primarily in U.S. dollars, making them vulnerable to foreign exchange risks and debt repayment pressures. An unstable international financial environment further worsened the crisis. Capital flowed into Latin American countries, but swiftly withdrew during shifts in the international financial landscape, causing capital flight. Unstable exchange rates and inflation intensified the severity of the crisis. In 1982, Mexico declared its inability to repay its maturing external debt, becoming the trigger point for the Latin American debt crisis. Subsequently, creditor nations and international financial institutions rapidly lost confidence in Latin American countries, and capital began to massively withdraw, exacerbating capital flight. This further worsened the economic conditions of these countries, intensifying the crisis. To address the crisis, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, provided assistance and debt restructuring plans. These plans required debtor countries to implement austerity policies, including cutting fiscal expenditures, raising taxes, and reducing inflation to alleviate the debt burden. However, these measures sparked social unrest and protests as they led to rising unemployment rates, reduced social welfare, and economic recession. The crisis further affected the economies and financial systems of the entire Latin American region. Many countries experienced recession, suppressed economic growth, increased unemployment rates, and heightened social instability. Meanwhile, trust in the international financial system was severely undermined, leading to a reduction in investment and loans, exacerbating the economic difficulties. The Latin American debt crisis had extensive and far-reaching consequences for the region. Firstly, it severely hindered the economic growth of many countries, leading to increased unemployment and a decline in people's living standards. The austerity policies and economic recession resulted in the closure of many businesses, reduced job opportunities, and led to widespread unemployment issues. This caused social instability and increased social discontent, exacerbating economic and political pressures. Secondly, the crisis raised questions and calls for reform within the international financial system, laying the foundation for the evolution of the global financial system. The Latin American debt crisis revealed the flaws and instability within the international financial system, prompting discussions on the regulation and reform of financial institutions and debt markets. This led to a series of international financial reform measures aimed at improving the stability, transparency, and sustainability of the financial system. After the crisis, some countries implemented a series of economic and financial reforms to stabilize their economies and prevent future crises. These reforms included strengthening financial regulations, reducing dependency on debt, enhancing domestic productivity, and promoting trade diversification. Some countries successfully achieved economic recovery, restoring economic growth and stability. For example, countries like Mexico, Brazil, and Chile implemented a series of structural reforms and open policies, attracting foreign investment and driving economic growth. However, The Latin American debt crisis continues to have long-term impacts on the region's economy and society. The burden of debt remains for these countries, and they still face a range of structural issues such as inequality, poverty, and corruption. Debt issues limit the fiscal space of governments, affecting the development of public investment and social welfare. Furthermore, the debt crisis has had lasting effects on the credit ratings of Latin American countries, restricting their ability to access international capital and increasing borrowing costs.